This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
The biggest icon in podcasting.
Welcome in, everybody, to this week's edition of the DocNJock Wrestling Podcast. This is episode 299, almost hitting 300. On today's show, we've got one former WWE champion who may be headed to AEW. Rumors are swirling about changes coming to WWE, and a longtime WWE employee has left the company. Also, MJF out of action. How long? We're going to talk about all of that. We've got the Bloodline. They could possibly getting a new female member. Again, this is edition 299. I'm your host, Adam the Jock Straczynski, doing it with me as always, helping break it all down. We've got a pay-per-view. We've got to cycle through. We've got a whole bunch of stuff going on in WWE. We got to touch on AEW, and we've got some New Japan. He is the one. He is the only. He is the Doc, John Macaroon. What's up, cuz?
Cuz it's a reason to celebrate. You're actually incorrect. This is episode 300.
Is it 300?
Yes, you fell into the.
I always a show behind.
Yes, this is episode 300. It's great. I think it's funny to start the new year with a botch, but it's great. I think that I'm excited. We've been doing this a long time. We've done more than 300 talks about wrestling because if you guys recall, we used to do Doc and Jock and then throw a wrestling segment at the end. So Adam and I have been talking about wrestling on the airwaves for such a long time, man. It's been fun. It's exciting. Lots of good things going on. Last time we met with you guys, we didn't even bring up the opportunity and the big event that happens in Japan every year. You know, the Wrestle Kingdom show on par when you wake up on a Wednesday and you start seeing all the results and highlights and entrances and you're like, holy cow, it's the new year. That means Wrestle Kingdom. We'll talk about that later on. Wrestling, we talked about it just before we hit the airwaves here. Man, it was such a good week. I loved every second of it. From the pay-per-view to Raw to what you're seeing now online with the debates regarding the future of what's going on in AEW. So much is crazy this year. And in the next 365 days, the television landscape of the business will come into focus. So there's so much stuff. It's no holiday at Detroit Sports Podcast, no holiday at our wrestling podcast. And for the world of wrestling, my God, let's kick it off, baby. AEW's World's End, I thought was, something that compared to the other pay-per-views, in my mind, missed the mark. And I just think that I was excited for it. But I think some of the results left me a little disappointed in regards to kind of some herky-jerky decision-making, especially in a marquee feud. Let's break it all down, my man.
Yeah, it was an okay pay-per-view. It had matches, and it had some storylines where you're like, okay, this is good. But all in all, it was, again, what AEW gives you for a pay-per-view. It's 5 pounds or 10 pounds of shit stuffed in a 5-pound bag. It's a little bit much. And like you said, you could do with having somebody heavily edit some of this because you don't need all of this. If you just give us some good quality stuff, it's going to make the pay-per-view that much better. I like what WWE has done in contrast, where you're getting 4 and 5 matches on a pay-per-view, and they're generally wrapped up in 2, pushing 3 hours, and it's just seamless. You get a lot of time for the matches. You get a lot of good storytelling. This one had what feels like 25 matches. It wasn't 25 matches, but it sure felt like it. Kicks off with Willow Nightingale defeating Chris Statlander on the pre-show. A bit of a herky-jerky match. A little bit of a botch spots here and there, kind of like me coming in with 299 when we're actually on 300. I'm always a show behind. I don't know why. Kill Switch ends up winning the 20-man Battle Royal on the pre-show for the future TNT title shot. I had Nick Wayne. I totally forgot about Kill Switch, a.k.a. Luchasaurus. If I would have thought better, I probably would have picked him. I think you would have as well. FTW Championship Hook ends up defeating Wheeler Yuta on the pre-show. And then we start getting just some meat and potatoes. And this is where things, I think, kind of get a little bit lumped together. We ended up getting some matches that weren't really advertised, weren't really previewed. There were some last-minute calls that you had to sub different guys in, and we're going to kind of get to all of that. Bryan Danielson, Claudio Castagnoli, Mark Briscoe, and Daniel Garcia end up defeating Switchblade Jay White, Brody King, Roosh, and Jay Lethal. To me, this just kind of felt like a match to get these guys on the card because Bryan Danielson, Claudio Castagnoli, Mark Briscoe, and Daniel Garcia have nothing in common. And Switchblade Jay White, Brody King, Roosh, and Jay Lethal don't really either. So it was just kind of, here's a match. Again, you could have not included this. It would have been fine. Miro ends up defeating Andrade El Idolo. Now, going into this match, there was a lot of stuff coming out of what took place in I guess Guerrilla or backstage. Sounds like this is the last match for Andrade in AEW. Sounds like he is completely done with AEW. I know we had some anticipations that he may be showing up on the Monday Night Raw episode, the day one episode of WWE. Look, let's spend a little bit of time here talking about Andrade's run in AEW. I think it's been messy, to say the best. We touched on it last week where we kind of highlighted some of his trials and tribulations in AEW, working to get himself fired when Triple H got put back into power. I think when you have guys like Andrade and guys like Miro, for that matter, you have to be somebody that they respect. If you're the booker, you've got to be a guy that demands and commands that respect. And I think these guys really only respect guys who have been there and done it. So them going back to WWE, working with a guy like Triple H, it makes sense. Them working with a guy like Tony Khan, who a lot of these guys call a fan. A lot of these guys call him a mark. It's weird to hear an employee talk about your booker and your owner that way, calling him a mark. That's an inflammatory term. But these guys look at him like that, and you can hear it as much in their voice and when they talk about him. And I think that's how Andrade viewed Tony Khan, and I think that's why there was a lack of respect there, and I think that's why a lot of things didn't really go Andrade's way because there just wasn't a very good relationship. I think Andrade took it because he got released from WWE and he needed a paycheck, and Tony Khan paid him a pretty handsome amount of money. Sounds like he's going to go back to WWE for a little bit more money. What did you think of Andrade's run, and what do you think of Miro's run for that fact as well?
You can barely even call it or describe it as a run. He was there, and that was it. He never had anything meaningful. I felt like he was portrayed as, wearing a mask and stuff like that. His character was demarginalized. And I think that when you go somewhere, and I'm sure you've been made assurances that, hey, this is going to be different, in the end, you don't expect that the way in which they're going to use you ends up being worse than where you were from where you came from. And I think no amount of money makes it so that a performer is not happy with the stories they're being told, that no titles, minimal exposure. Like, he never felt like a star. He always felt like he was a guy that was a third tier, like a guy that would show up on a Wednesday house show as opposed to headlining a Collision. So it was very weird. I was surprised because, obviously he'd battled some stuff too. It just was not a run. He was in AEW, he performed, and he got out.
Yeah, it was underwhelming, to say the least. What do you think about Miro? Because I see Miro kind of going down a similar path. Miro basically sat out for almost 18 months because he didn't like what creative had for him. And now he comes back and yeah, you beat Andrade, but you don't really see Miro a lot. Every now and then he's on Collision. He's not really highlighted on the A show, which is Dynamite. And even when he's highlighted on Collision, it almost feels like it's brief. They're brief moments. Like here's a 5-minute, maybe a 10-minute match just to get you a little bit of TV time. It doesn't really seem like either he's engaged with what his run could be or should be, or they're just not engaged with him. It is, again, a WWE guy who has come over to AEW and it just doesn't seem like he fits.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like, you got to remember that he got over a little bit organically in WWE with Rusev Day, and they involved him in some entertainment. I think he's kind of in a tough spot because he's such a brute, and he's kind of got that Hercules situation. Could you imagine back in the day? I don't know if it was just a little bit before you started watching. There was this character named Dino Bravo, and he got a little bit over.
Oh yeah, I remember him.
Yeah, Dino Bravo was interesting because he started doing a little bit of entertaining stuff, and he got himself a little bit more popular. But here's the thing with Miro. He just hasn't been given any meaningful feuds that are memorable that you would say, well, what do you remember from WWE? The memorable entrance at WrestleMania, the way in which he was used, the Rusev Day, getting over, the feuds that he was in were meaningful, impactful. At AEW, 18-month break kills your momentum. He's not over, nothing meaningful, nothing memorable. Like, you got to create something. No sayings, nothing. It's just he shows up, and I think, too, when you clearly see the impact of a gimmick that doesn't work. I mean, this godly thing, it was never going to work. I think that you probably, I mean, why reinvent the wheel? I mean, you just take Rusev and amp it up a little bit. Miro, just, I'm a tough dude. I'm here to handle business. I'm pissed off. I mean, you don't think that for Miro, all he's got to do one time is, how do you get heat? I mean, this is not difficult. Prince Nani's dancing on Collision, and there's Miro to say, I'm not entertained by this nonsense, and knock him out. And you walk off. He gets heat, and now you're like, whoa, Swerve versus Miro. Boom. How dare you?
You're against one of the biggest, hottest stars in AEW.
You're right. How dare you hit my Prince? And then you have Miro saying, I'm not a fan of this nonsense. And he's like, this is wrestling, and I'm here to handle business. And you and your clown show are ruining the time that I need. That's it. All you got to do is have him in something meaningful. I feel like the matchups that you're putting him in have, like I said, is there anything meaningful? Is there a meaningful feud that Miro had in AEW that you go, wow? Nothing. And I think you have the characters now to do that. Hangman Page, Takeshita, you have all these other guys, and I just think that when you're not even at the mid-card status, it kind of shows. Especially, it's unfortunately, we used to do the stock watch, and not only did he fall in 23, but now it looks like in 24 he's still continuing the slide where he's a C- performer, and it's unfortunate that a guy with talent that if you give him something, you probably have something there.
No, you're absolutely right. And look, it's simple because you've seen AEW do it, you've seen WWE do it. It is as simple as him coming in and being like, it's Miro Day. You say it's Miro Day, the crowd's going to know. They're going to pop. It's going to be a callback to Rusev Day, and you're off and running. Instead, it's just kind of been white paint drying on a wet wall, and it hasn't really been much of anything. And it's weird to see both of these guys in kind of the middle beginning of this card, and it was just kind of a match. It's what it was. After this, we ended up with AEW's Women's Championship on the line. Toni Storm ends up defeating Rio. We then get to Swerve versus Dustin Rhodes. And again, things getting kind of switched up on this card. Swerve going up against Keith Lee was something that was added relatively late in the build to this card. And to be honest with you, with all the work that Swerve has been doing, I don't necessarily know that he needed to be on this card. So this was a good match because Dustin goes out and Dustin performs. Dustin is a showman, and Dustin knows how to go. And conversely, Swerve is a guy who I think is really hitting a stride. And Swerve is a guy who is, at this point, really ascending up the ranks. And you talked about the stock watch. Swerve has been kind of doubling and tripling his stock for the last couple of weeks, and he has basically arrived in the upper echelon. So this was a good match. Again, you are always up against a time constraint when you have this many people wrestling, and you're trying to give everybody as much time as they need. You could have took some of this time back because you didn't necessarily have to have this match. You could have made an announcement, Keith Lee is not fit to go. You could have Swerve cut a promo, or you could even did something like a weird injury angle in the back where Swerve attacks Keith Lee and he can't go. And then you could just kind of push this off to Dynamite or push this to the other pay-per-view. Instead, you give Swerve Dustin, and again, good match, but it didn't need to happen. What were your thoughts on this?
You know why you, Kenny, and Adam S. should thank your lucky stars?
Why is that?
You guys almost were treated to the John Macaroon Prince Nani dance. I'm into it, cuz you swerve, you swerve. Everybody picture it. The Doc going left to right, got his hand. I'm almost down with the timing. Left, right, arm up, twist your hips. I'm almost there, but I said to myself, my wife was looking at me, and you know when you're acting a fool, whatever you guys do to try and impress your significant other, and she's looking at me and having no clue what the hell I'm doing, and she's like, I married this man. Like she's like what she's like and you know, my wife at times, very awesome, one of the greatest people on earth. She looked at me and said, "What are you doing?" And I said, "I'm doing the Prince Nani dance," and I walked off. And so so I'm into the.
You just mic drop it. You just leave the room.
Exactly. I'm into it. Kenny shared a great message in our group chat. The ones he sent were cool, but nothing topped. All you got to do is leave it. I have it saved now. If you go on our Twitter page, I'm saving some of my favorite entrances on our Twitter page at Detroit Podcast. The one from World's End, the one that he did there was great. The camera is just on him. You don't need to go to the crowd. And he's doing the dance. He goes Swerve when I drive. He does the hand thing, and he does the jumping around as Swerve, and the camera locked on him. It's perfect. Kenny said it himself. Prince Nani doing his thing, rising up the ranks, and it just adds to it. It's fun, and we got it to see something that I think people wanted to see on Wednesday as well with Dynamite. So the match was great. You definitely can't take your eyes off of Swerve. He's over. He's got something that involves crowd interaction. Prince Nani is doing his thing. He got himself over too, and the Prince Nani entrance is something I look forward to. When Dynamite was on and they said, "Oh, it's Daniel Garcia versus Swerve Strickland," I was like, "Prince Nani time, baby!" I was looking forward to it, and it delivered.
Yeah, look, again, really good match, and look, Prince Nana his dance is very interesting. I love how on Twitter, and you can follow John on Twitter at Detroit Podcast. You can follow myself at Adam R STROZ. All the time, posting gifs of Prince Nana and doing his dance. He is, again, Swerve ascending, Prince Nana ascending as well, along with Swerve. So after that, we ended up with Sting, Chris Jericho, Sammy Guevara, Darby Allin. They defeated Takeshita, Powerhouse Hobbs, Ricky Starks, Big Bill in an 8-man tag match. Now, going into, I don't even have this stuff in the news or notes, but we should probably talk about it here. Going into this pay-per-view, there were a lot of allegations levied against Chris Jericho for possibly
allegedly
raping or sexual assault against different female wrestlers. This is all allegations. These were all started by Nick Houseman at House of Wrestling. This Nick Houseman is a guy who has gained quite a bit of traction and quite a bit of fame in the wrestling community very quickly. A lot of it's because of CM Punk. CM Punk has fed him a couple of stories, and he's kind of run with them. Nick Houseman seems to have an axe to burn with, or an axe to grind with, Chris Jericho, and he kind of said some inflammatory things, led to basically an entire day, an entire afternoon of people digging up these stories on Chris Jericho, and really painting Chris Jericho in a really bad light. Days later, Houseman comes out to basically say, no, I never said that he sexually assaulted or raped anybody. I was just alluding to him kind of being a jerk. And in one fell swoop, Nick Houseman has really discredited himself. And at this point, I will not take anything Nick Houseman says seriously at all. Really, to me, it's really bad what he did, because you really tried to tarnish a guy like Chris Jericho's, one, his legacy, but two, his reputation and his name. And now you might have a defamation lawsuit. If I'm Chris Jericho, I'm going after you, because for over a week now, people have been talking about this. People have been discussing this. Your name has been brought up with the likes of other sexual predators. And going into this match, Jericho was heavily booed. He was supposed to be a babyface, heavily booed. They had a bunch of NDA signs, Non-Disclosure Act signs in the crowd, and it was messy. This match was really overshadowed by the crowd's reaction. This match was really it got pulled back, and the overall feel of it was really hampered by all of these things that Houseman alleged. What were your thoughts on this match and Chris Jericho's involvement specifically, and what do you make of all the stuff that Houseman did that he ended up coming back and kind of recanting on? To me, if you are a journalist or if you are a media reporter or personality, you don't do these things. There is a code of ethics when you go to journalism school. I know this because I went to journalism school. I know you are in the media. You fancy yourself a reporter. You fancy yourself a bit of a journalist here. There is a ethics class that you have to take, and it is your job. You are a gatekeeper of information. You are a person who people come to you and confide in you and tell you things, and then it's your job to research this stuff. It's your job to dig into this, and it's your job to then present this in a way that basically a fourth grader could read. And it's your job to protect the innocent and to basically show who is harming who. And to me, it really feels like Nick Houseman got on a soapbox and was like, I don't like Chris Jericho, so I'm going to try to burn him to the ground. And you just don't do that. You just don't do these things if you are in the media, if you are a journalist, if you are a reporter. These things, you just don't do these things. And I feel incredibly strongly about this. You just don't do this stuff. And honestly, days later, I'm very upset about all of this. What was your take on the match? What was your take on Chris Jericho? What was your take on Nick Houseman? There's a lot wrapped up in just this small match. We didn't even talk about the match. We talked about everything surrounding the match.
Yeah, it was crazy, too, because Ricky Starks did the middle finger, and people think that's part of the match. It gets debated. I think, just real quick on the wrestling side, Chris Jericho should just turn heel. You guys turned on me. You don't trust me. Just be a heel for the next foreseeable future. I think that you get some heat and things like that in the world of pro wrestling. You go with the tides, and unfortunately, it just marred the match. And it's unfortunate, but I'm of the opinion, and like yourself, look, let me give you the credit. No, you're a journalist. You went to the classes. I never took the classes. I don't know. Like you said, you informed me about the code of ethics and things like that. I am somebody that is an infotainer. I'm a podcaster. That's the role I've always wanted to be. And once we started it, I am not. I hold journalists at the highest level of respect because it's a tough gig and it's one that maybe is not rewarding. It's really the seriousness and the height of reporting and media is a true journalist. I can't. I'm too emotional. I let emotions bleed in. I took the stance, and many people will know. I've said it here, said it anywhere. My stance has always been: if you think it, tweet it, post it, and whatever happens, happens. So that's why I definitely stamped it. The first words that you'll see on our Twitter page is entertainment. That's what we're trying. That's what I would propose. No, you did the work. You understand the tenets of what people are supposed to do. No. As a show, you're responsible for what your guests say. I know people will debate that, but if something comes up like that, of that nature, where your livelihood, legalities of how your business, you have to be accurate and you have to spend the time on it. You can't just say it and gloss over it, because it instantly, within 48 hours, you have signs in the crowd. You have a match impacted. You have the owner of the company having to answer it in a way where kind of weirdly wearing a costume, but okay. But a matter like that is serious, and there are times where those allegations are false, and it just, unfortunately, the allegation ruins someone's reputation. I mean, instantly, within 5 hours, someone posted a video of Jericho getting into a fight with a lady, where it has the feel of a disgruntled, angry dude, but he was feeling cornered, and he did what he did. But that's not who he is. Chris Jericho, you got to look at it as you say. These are allegations. We don't know. We don't speculate on stuff like that, and you just hope that that's all we can hope. From myself, my opinion would be you just hope that Tony Khan is not putting business over employing somebody that potentially could do these things. Because if it's true, now you're one of the worst owners in the history of sports to support something like this, and it could result in the downfall of your company. So you hope that this NDA thing is not true. Like I said, it's allegations. And until then, from my seat, it's always innocent until proven guilty. And at this time, it does not appear that he will be facing any issues. It feels like the individuals involved have not, look, when you start making references based on what people like and comment on Twitter, it's going to be a dangerous thing. Like, you can't infer. That's the number one thing I think you would say as a journalist is you can't assume. Just because a lady likes something on Twitter doesn't mean that the worst thing is possible. And even if these allegations come to a situation, it's always innocent until proven guilty. So you need more facts. And unfortunately for Chris Jericho, his match was impacted. But in the end, it may end up being something that the company can use in a storyline in regards to taking Chris Jericho's character and moving it in a more nasty direction.
Yep. No, you're absolutely right. It is innocent until proven guilty, and right now it appears as though Chris Jericho is innocent. Let's just kind of move on from this. Again, I got a little bit wrapped up with a lot of the other stuff, and it wasn't even so much the match for me. It was just everything that kind of surrounded it. Next, we had our TBS Championship match. Julia Hart ends up defeating Abaddon in a House Rules match. We then get to Adam Copeland, who defeats Christian Cage to become the new TNT champion. Then Christian cashed in Killswitch's contract to defeat Copeland and regain the title. Now, it was an interesting match. It was a match where it was a rematch of something we had on Dynamite where Christian Cage used a lot of outside interference. So Adam Copeland demanded a match where there could be nothing but outside interference in a no DQ match. To me, this felt a little bit overbooked. You have Copeland win for one in a match where all of Christian Cage's goons can get involved, only to beat Christian Cage, but then to have Christian Cage take the cash-in chip from Killswitch and cash that in to beat Copeland again to get his title back. I thought what he did on Dynamite was spectacular. The way he acted like he never lost and how he never gave Killswitch any praise for what he did to help him win it back his title. But to me, this entire match was just very convoluted. Do you feel the same way, or did you like kind of how this all played out with a little bit of twist and turn?
No, that killed the pay-per-view. That it went from a B pay-per-view to a C-. I was like, no, dude, seriously. You understand that Christian Cage can be a heel without having to win the title back. To cash it in, I thought, look, overbooked. Best way to put it. I think that you had a situation in which people wanted to see Copeland win the title. You can still move along a feud without having it go where the heel screws over the face. I think this situation it's wrestling. After it's been like now since, it's about 45 days, 60 days, people are like, okay, you get the payoff. The payoff should have been Copeland winning the match, celebrating. Okay, you want to have Christian Cage get upset and whack him in the head and do some things, fine. But in the end, I thought that the result was too overbooked, and it definitely, I don't think, makes sense too in regards to, it continues the feud, but I think that in this situation, you got a hot performer, and you recognize that it would have been good to have a change. I think Christian Cage had his run, and it would have been a natural end to his title reign, and you could have moved it forward. And I think, too, because this story is, I know they want to tell it over a period of time, I think that because of their history, we've seen it so many times, I think a natural pause at this point with Edge winning the title would have been okay.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree with you. I think you can. This is one of those things where you can kind of start and stop it almost at will. And they've got such good chemistry, and they've got such a good foundation and such a good history. You can kind of pull from it at any time you really needed to. And it's sometimes good to hit the accelerator and then hit the brakes, and then hit the accelerator and then hit the brakes again. I feel like this would have been a natural time to kind of deviate from this storyline a little bit. Let Adam Copeland go do something else. Let Christian continue to do his work with his guys, but always having one eye on that title, having one eye on Adam Copeland, and you could have them come back to each other in 3 months if you really wanted to, and it would have been fine. I think what we ended up with next was probably the match of the night. I know we had Samoa Joe and MJF wrestling, and we have a big moment to talk about there, but I thought match of the night was Eddie Kingston, Jon Moxley. I thought this was a fantastic match. This was the third part of their trilogy. This, I thought, told a great story. This was for all the marbles in every single belt in AEW, it felt like, because you got 3 of them in the Continental Classic. First off, what did you make of the new title belt? Do you like the new title belt? Do you think it looks a little bit cheap? Do you think it's something that is classic? for the name of the tournament, the Continental Classic, or what? What did you think of the new hardware that Eddie Kingston was presented after he beat John Moxley?
Based on AEW's style, I always feel like the AEW belt is so good, and then the rest of them are kind of not the best. But I would say for what it was, it's okay. It's a B. I graded a B. I looked at the tournament being something that really established something like the King of the Ring. I just don't think another belt. I don't think another belt was needed. You need to find something like a robe, or not a crown, not a robe, but something of value. Maybe not. I know people are doing rings, but maybe a big diamond chain or something. Something interesting. If you want to be funny, you just do an AEW rope like full of bling. The AEW diamond, pendant or something that blings and shines or something cool.
The diamond sash.
Oh, you know what? Being that I'm a poker fan and watching it, the AEW diamond bracelet, like $100,000 bracelet that shines, and you can wear it, and you kind of are established for the year as the man. And you can just talk about how valuable it is, and you could spend 50 and tell everyone it's 100, and it would be awesome. Like, could you imagine if you guys Google World Series of Poker bracelets, and every year they get more gaudy and blingy, and it says World Series of Poker, and there's just shining with diamonds. I think the diamond bracelet would have been better than a belt, because AEW also has the Ring of Honor belts, and then you got this New Japan infusion at times. There's just way too many belts to keep track of, and it just feels like, at this point in time, and now performing Takeshita, he doesn't have a belt, and just announce the people that don't have belts at this point, because it feels like there's like 40 belts in AEW right now.
Yeah, no, that's right. And look, like at a certain point, Eddie Kingston has 3 belts that he now has to tote around. And look, I don't think there's anything special about this belt. I was really underwhelmed by it. I was looking forward to this. I was like, maybe this will be a cool looking belt. To me, it looks like something you could have went to Meijer or to Target and picked off the kids shelf. And this is what you can run around with. For a long time, this was what our championship prize was. It was like a fake WWE belt that we spray painted. And that's kind of what this looked like. It looked like it was one of those kids' belts that you spend $24.99 on, and you run around with it. In this case, I was not a huge fan of the belt. I was a huge fan of this match. I thought this match was fantastic. I love at the very, very end, John Moxley, Eddie Kingston giving each other their praise. John Moxley ends up hugging Eddie Kingston and ends up rolling out of the ring to give him the ring to celebrate. I thought it was a really touching moment. What did you think of the match? I know the belt was a little bit underwhelming, but I don't think the match was. What did you think of the match?
I thought the match was well. I feel like Eddie Kingston really, over the past 60 days, in the situation in which now he's getting more attention. You told the story of a guy battling things, and now he's getting success. And it really, when you tell a good story of somebody that's on the rise and you tell it properly, you get the impact of people wanting him to win. And when he does win, people are excited.
Yeah, and the crowd popped hard for him, finally sealing the deal in the third match of their trilogy. This led us to our main event. Samoa Joe taking on MJF for the AEW World Championship. Samoa Joe ends up beating MJF, gets him in the Coquina clutch, and MJF gets choked out. Look, I was pretty shocked at how this match ended. Joe ends up slipping the Coquina clutch on, and the ref goes for the arm lift. It falls down for 1, goes back for the arm lift, falls down for 2. And it's just a trite thing in wrestling. You've seen it since Hulk Hogan was around when you were a kid. They don't ever fall for 3. They always stop it, and then they hulk up or they get pumped up, and the next thing you know, they're getting up off the mat and they're about to put in some more work. This didn't happen. MJF, his arm fell for 3. I was surprised, and I was kind of like, what? Like, I was almost like, in my head, I know what the rules are, but I was like, what do we do now? Because you're just not used to seeing it. Bryce Remsburg did a great job of selling his surprise and his disbelief. I thought he did a fantastic job with that. He even looked like, what do I do now? Reluctantly and concerning and half-heartedly, he ended up calling for the bell. What was your shock level? Because the crowd, myself, I think we were all stunned that MJF did not raise his arm on the third try and ended up getting choked out. I know you and I both picked MJF to win this match. After reading his long, well-written letter in the Players Tribune, I wanted to go back and redo our picks, and I wanted to pick Samoa Joe. I felt like that was kind of his goodbye letter to the fans at this moment in time. And I had prepared myself for Joe winning this after we've done our picks. And I wasn't prepared for him to go away this way. I wasn't prepared for him to get choked out like this and not raise his arm, and I was shocked. Were you stunned by the ending? Were you shocked at all by him not being able to, again, by something very trite in wrestling? The arm raise on 3 is always a thing, and you just didn't get it here. I thought it was a nice little swerve, a nice little herky jerk in the storytelling here. What did you think?
Yeah, absolutely. I just think that knowing that you want to establish Samoa Joe, what's the baddest way to establish somebody that is going to be the champion? He's tough. He took somebody out with his arms, and I think that Samoa Joe earned it. And even though we may not agree, but unfortunately situations occur that end up costing a character some time on TV. But in the end, when you look at the journey, Samoa Joe is a worthy champion, and he'll do just fine.
Yeah, no, I think Joe will be fine as champion. It'll be interesting to see what they do with his title run and kind of where it goes and what it is. At the end of this match and in the finality, it is revealed Adam Cole is actually the devil. Adam Cole, you have the members of the Kingdom, Taven and Mike Bennett, and you've got Roddy Strong, and you've got Wardlow. Those were all the members of the Devil's Clan, the guys who were beating up everybody leading up to this pay-per-view. It'll be interesting when Kyle O'Reilly gets cleared if he will be joining the Devil and his crew. What were your thoughts on Adam Cole being the reveal? Was it just what you thought? Was it underwhelming? Was it more than you thought? Where were you at on this?
It was cool to see the visual. I would have liked it where he would have actually had the devil mask on and taken it off. I think that might have had a little more impact. But look, in the end, we knew it was coming. It's cool to see the members of the group. It's just tough because I think a surprise would have been really probably the best way to go. Somebody else. It just, unfortunately, when you know it, you see it, it doesn't have the impact. It's kind of like, okay. And I think coupled with the fact that it felt like, to me, they wanted the surprise more to be the MJF loss to Samoa Joe, and then we're going to reveal something that everybody already knows. So, in the end, I think the crowd was into it, but you didn't get that. It didn't feel like, I don't know how it came across to you, it didn't feel like the crowd went apeshit. It was kind of more like, yeah, we knew it, and here it is, and now we're seeing it.
Yep. It was kind of like, all right, cool, here's confirmation. It was
confirmation. Yep.
It wasn't this bombastic, like, oh my God, mind's blown type of thing. Wasn't our regular holy shit moments we get.
Yes.
And because of all of this, we ended up splitting the point. I trail you still by 3. It's going to get interesting as we head into Mania season. We've got Royal Rumble, and we both know at Royal Rumble that could be up to a 3-point swing. We will have Elimination Chamber. I'm assuming AEW is going to have another pay-per-view in the middle of all of this. So we've got many pay-per-views, many ways for me to still make up some ground and catch up to you and make this interesting before we get to our final pay-per-view of the year. With all that being said, we then go to Dynamite, and Adam Cole has now formed the Undisputed Kingdom. Basically, it's Roderick Strong, it's Wardlow, which he doesn't necessarily fit in this group, and then it's, again, Matt Taven and Mike Bennett from the Kingdom. What did you think about his promo? Adam Cole's still obviously really banged up, really injured. He's sitting the entire time in a chair, and he's kind of explaining that, look, I turned on MJF before MJF turned on me. MJF was going to turn on me, and you guys think I'm the bad guy because I basically did it first. You guys are all wrong. The promo ends up getting cut short by a lot of the guys that the Devil and his crew have taken out. In recent months, you had the Acclaim come out, you had Bullet Club Gold come out. So it appears leading up to whenever MJF comes back, you are going to have Adam Cole and the Undisputed Kingdom taking on all the people that they basically put out of business now. But I guess the real question is, one, what did you make of the promo? And two, what do you make of the name Undisputed Kingdom?
I thought it was great. Look, it is what it is. He's establishing himself as the reason why. And Adam Cole as a heel probably is going to work very well. I think that when you look at it, somebody ruling the roost, getting somebody out, you recognize that it's a power play, and everybody's looking for power, and Adam Cole now is it. And I think that it's a natural transition knowing that MJF is out. You got a heel that people are going to care about, and you establish a faction that now can battle people. You have the top heel group, and now the faces can get over by trying to take down the evil rulers of the Undisputed Kingdom.
And speaking of factions, we've had a couple of new ones, not just the Undisputed Kingdom. We had one that debuted on SmackDown. Let's transition to WWE. First, we had Monday Night Raw. This was the recall of Day One. Remember, that was a tried and failed pay-per-view a couple of years ago. They're now using it for Monday Night Raw. I thought Monday Night Raw was pretty good. Triple H teased that we would be getting a former champion. We'd be getting somebody. It was supposed to be big. It was supposed to be huge. Turned out it was Jinder Mahal. I thought it was a nice swerve. The crowd was so dejected and so upset.
Could you imagine?
It was a promo that went on for way too long.
It did, but could you imagine if you're Jinder Mahal and you see the rundown and you're like revealed to be Jinder Mahal and you're like, oh my God. It felt cheap on his part, but in the end, it goes to show you that when you can do a swerve and be creative, it's kind of like a nod Triple H is doing to say, hey, got you guys. And I think he got off on the faux pop too. He's like, listen to this. And when you can deliver that, where you hype something up so much and then Jinder's music played, the crowd scene was perfect. It was just like, no, because people for a minute thought that was for real. And then it's like you dangle the surprise, and then it's The Rock. You actually amplified the moment that you did have, and that's what you're looking for. It was special. It was awesome. And credit to Jinder Mahal, because when you're the foil and, you got to do the gimmick of, the America Sucks gimmick, tried and true, it just kind of had a feel to harken to the past, and then you get The Rock. I thought it was great. Kind of a nod a little bit to, if you remember, when Muhammad Hassan and then Hogan came out, so it is kind of a nostalgic feel. So Triple H knows what he's doing. He's a master. He understands what happened, and I thought that they did a great job. The Rock has come back to WWE, and the world is buzzing.
Yes, and look, The Rock comes in, saves the beatdown of America as Jinder is just cutting into America. Look, I thought The Rock's promo was a little bit long.
Too long.
I thought we could have kind of sped that up a little bit. But what we got out of it is The Rock basically asking if he should sit at the head of the table. So we are headed down the path of The Rock versus Roman. I guess the first question is, do we need this match? Do we have to have this match? Should we have this match? Because this has been something that has been almost fantasy booked and has been talked about for a while now. What I got out of The Rock's performance on Monday Night Raw, The Rock is not in shape for this yet. The Rock is not ready for this. The Rock was blown up and The Rock was winded after doing a rock bottom and cutting what felt like an eternity of a promo. And look, his promo was decent. I don't think his promos hit like they hit years ago when we were kids. I think they're good. I think it's still a little shticky. And I don't think the shtick necessarily works as well as it did back in the day. It's always fun to hear him say, The Rock has come back. It's always fun to tell him it doesn't matter whatever it is. Those things are always fun. But some of his promo cutting and some of his timing with his promo, it just feels a little bit off. He's not been in the business for a while. So when he comes back, there's always rust that he has to shake off. If Rock is willing to do a 3-month bid or a 2-month bid with WWE, get himself into shape to be in the ring and not get blown up after doing one rock bottom, get himself into shape where he can cut his promos after doing things and not be winded, get himself into shape where his timing is back, not just in the ring, but for the promos. I'm all about it. Right now, I don't necessarily feel like we need this because I don't think it serves a purpose to the overarching story that we're trying to tell. And I don't need him to come in and kind of screw this up, because I feel like, to steal from Paul Heyman, I feel like we are now in the bottom of the 7th inning. We are starting to wind parts of this bloodline storyline down. And the storyline with Roman Reigns, I think, is starting to come to a bit of an end here. You remember, I think it was back at WrestleMania last year, Paul Heyman said that, hey, we're just in the top of the 3rd. I think we're now in the bottom of the 7th for this. I think we're starting to kind of ease towards the finality of Roman's run as champion. We're starting to ease to the finality of Roman as the head of the table. I don't know if we need The Rock to come in and possibly add a bit of a damper to this. So do we need this match? Is this the right time for it?
As long as it's not at WrestleMania, I think the perfect spot is Australia in the stadium. Perfect. I think that it's a perfect spot.
I agree with you 100%.
I can't see Cody not. I mean, if Triple H has the ultimate balls, he would have, finishing the story in kind of a way would be Roman Reigns standing again tall and being the champion at WrestleMania, because you got to remember, too, that he was booed out of the building when he won the Royal Rumble. He takes the microphone and he said, "You guys wanted someone to get their moment. Now it's my moment. Boo that." Boom, throw the mic down and walk off. Would they have the balls to do it in Philadelphia? I don't know, because seriously, in all seriousness, those fans might get so angry that they might do some things like actually come to the ring. Like literally, I think if Cody Rhodes loses, if the match is Cody versus Roman and he loses, I don't know if they got the guts to do it, because the fans will be so disappointed. It has the feel. You can't make wrestling fans wait a year for Cody Rhodes to win a title. I just think the anger would be so much. So I think it's a given nature that's what we want to see. And I think the buildup will be so good, because everybody wants to see it. Everybody in the world is waiting and has waited a year, because you know how long that is? Almost a year and a half, almost 2 full years to see somebody they care about, who they think is a top guy, win a title. There's no way. I don't think Triple H has the guts, and I think it's just a real security risk to try and pull a move like that. So you don't want to diminish Cody Rhodes, because if you don't have him in the main event, I think you just put a bullet hole in his career trajectory. I mean, how do you recover from that? I mean, you fall so far on the way in which people perceive you. It would just be hard to stay invested in Cody Rhodes. It's like, what are we doing here? Is he now just kind of a guy? Like, no, he's got to be a top guy. Like, this is it. This is the time. He needs to do his thing, and Roman Reigns needs to take on different feuds and really clean up some of the things, maybe fighting Jimmy, Jay, do some things, and maybe start the process of taking a couple losses here and there, putting over Jimmy and Jay and Solo, and having some things go not his way, so that when he comes back in 25 fully as Roman Reigns, he can do his thing. Because he's doing he's an attraction. But in the end, I think that Rock and Roman people want to see. Rock will get himself in shape. And yeah, he does got to update his promos to match 2024. The first time around, okay, you can bring back nostalgia, but now you got to pick up the pace.
Yeah, I agree with you. Nostalgia is a cool pop for you, and it does some good things. I think you're right, though. Where this match falls, we don't get it at the Royal Rumble. We've already had an announcement on what's going to take place at the Royal Rumble on SmackDown. We're going to talk about that here in a moment. And look, I don't want to see this at WrestleMania. Like you said, you've made me wait a year for Cody to get his run. You've made Cody kind of go through all of this to get back to this place. And if you don't put the belt on Cody at this year's WrestleMania, then what are you doing? I feel like you're doubling down on a mistake. I think it was a mistake last year to not put the belt on him. I think he was white hot. I think you've let this guy basically simmer at a high heat now for a year. It's time. The Roman has done a really nice job. Roman has been a good champion. Roman is not a fighting champion. Roman's not on your TV screens hardly ever. Cody is. Cody gets the loudest pop in the room. Cody sells the most merchandise. Cody's your guy. You need to put the belt on Cody, and you need to do that at WrestleMania. So that leaves Elimination Chamber. It is sandwiched between the Royal Rumble, and it is sandwiched between WrestleMania. Elimination Chamber is where The Rock and Roman should meet. Now, going to Royal Rumble, And I guess that kind of foreshadows a little bit of what's going to end up happening when The Rock and Roman runs in as the champion against The Rock. Roman is going to be stuck in a fatal four-way between Randy Orton, LA Knight, and AJ Styles at Royal Rumble. And that's because these three were having a fantastic match on SmackDown on Friday night, only for Solo, Jimmy, and Roman to come in and clean house as these guys had beaten each other down for over 20 minutes. What do you think about this? Like me and you both are not huge fans of mixed man matches when you've got more guys, especially for a championship. Like for a battle royal, we get it. For a tag, we get it, right? We do not generally like seeing multiple competitors fight for a championship. We kind of feel like it pulls away from the importance of that championship. And this is the biggest belt in WWE, at least the biggest belt on SmackDown. And now you're going to have four of the biggest names in the ring fighting it out. And look, I think this is good for the health of a guy like Randy Orton. I think this is good for the health of a guy like AJ Styles. I'm not sure if Roman's dealing with anything. His matches, again, they come so far and few in between. I don't believe he's banged up, and I don't believe LA Knight's banged up. But I think this is important for a guy like Randy, and I think this is good for a guy like AJ Styles, who are a little bit older and are just coming off major injuries. I think it's a good way to help ease them, protect them, a good way where they don't have to take massive bumps. But in the end, I don't really like a fatal four-way for your championship. How do you feel about this match?
Yeah, no. But unfortunately, this is the problem when you got big stars. How are you going to book LA Knight and AJ Styles and Randy Orton? I mean, it's unfortunate. I'm not a big fan of it. I'll be excited for the match when it happens. I just think it's one of those situations where the match will be interesting to see, but the lead up, it's just like, you just feel like it could have been done better. But, you know, in the end, you would have realistically thought maybe Randy Orton could win the title if it was one-on-one. In a fatal four-way, knowing now that The Rock is back, yeah, no, you're not going to have a title change at the Rumble unless you shock everybody and you give it to Randy Orton, which would be very, very shocking. But I don't think that happens. Roman goes in. It's going to be fun to see the entrances, the pomp and circumstance. It's good to see AJ Styles elevated to where he does belong. LA Knight. Unfortunately, this is what happens when you got a lot of top guys. You just put together the match, and that's what it's going to be. But it'll be a good match, and I think that it'll be fun to start the year off with a great pop for LA Knight.
All right, we talked about new factions earlier. We've got another new faction that debuted on SmackDown. Karrion Kross, nice. AOP has been brought back and dusted off, along with Paul Ellering. Is this an odd grouping or an awesome grouping? Because there's a lot of dudes here, a lot of meat, a lot of big, strong guys. I love Paul Ellering. I think it could be interesting with Paul Ellering and Scarlett. But I just kind of think it's a little bit weird, man. I think this is a bit of a weird group of dudes coming together. They do look dangerous. They do look intimidating. I just don't know if it's awesome. I think it has the potential to be awesome, but I think right now it's just kind of an odd grouping of guys.
Yeah, and if you guys really think about it, AOP was around when we started DocNJock Wrestling Podcast Episode 1. Now we're at 300, and here they are. They're back again. Let's hope they stay. It's like, let's do AOP Part 1, 1 year off. Let's do AOP Part 2, 2 years off. And now let's do AOP Part 3, 4 years off. So stick these guys together, and hopefully they stay. I think it's a great group. When you see Ellering, it just harkens back to Legion of Doom. You see the respect level, and you see something that you want to see. And I thought they presented it well. And I think Karrion Kross has, I think his trainer needs to tell him, you got to mix in some leg days because you look like a tree trunk that's all the way up top, and your legs aren't matching your huge frame up top. But the man has muscled up. And it's just funny when you see a guy like that. It's a bodybuilder that's so top heavy. But it almost it made it look like he looked like he had some shoulder pads on. Just he's all shoulder and chest, and he walks down to the ring and throws Bobby Lashley. I just thought, great, we got a feud. AOP is going to be cool. Let's just hope they stick around.
Yeah. Let's see what happens. Look, AOP has basically been with the company now for, I think, 6 months to almost 12 months. They just haven't done anything with them. So they're now back. They're on TV. They're with Karrion Kross. I think this is a good refresh for Karrion Kross, too. This is a guy who has a ton of potential, and it just really feels like they don't know what to do with him. He was so dominant in NXT. Then they brought him up and gave him the Gimp gimmick, and then they sent him away, and then they brought him back, and it's been like this stalled start for him. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. Maybe Paul Ellering gives him the magic touch. We'll see what takes place, but I'm interested in it. I think it's an odd grouping, but I think it has potential to be awesome. Let's switch gears to New Japan. Let's go overseas. Wrestle Kingdom 18 and New Year's Dash just took place. Wrestle Kingdom is one of the greatest, best wrestling events of the year. We didn't even touch on it last week. Really good job of cleaning up on a lot of WWE talent that has recently been released. One of those talents, Dolph Ziggler, now going by Nick Nemeth, made a surprise appearance at Thursday's January 4th Wrestle Kingdom 18. He was sitting ringside along with his brother, AEW star Ryan Nemeth. So there is a possibility that Dolph, a.k.a. Nick, ends up in AEW. We'll see what takes place. David Finlay ends up confronting Nick following his title win, and the two ended up brawling. And this kind of sets the stage for Dolph/Nick, however you want to refer to him, in his first post-WWE feud taking place in New Japan. It'll be Dolph/Nick taking on David Finlay. What are your thoughts on one, Nick Nemeth being in New Japan? Me personally, I think it's awesome. And then him starting it off with a guy like David Finlay, who has a ton of respect, is a really good competitor, does a fantastic job wrestling. I think these two guys together could burn the house down. What are your thoughts of Dolph, a.k.a. Nick Nemeth, going to New Japan?
Good for him. They made him look important. I think the walkthrough from the back is always decadent, and I thought him getting involved, he looked important. And I think that's what he can do is people feel like, hey, if you get exposed in New Japan, then there's an opportunity for you to kind of kick yourself off there. And I think that New Japan being a place where, WWE stars have gone before, Chris Jericho did it. It's a great model. I think New Japan, obviously having some wrestlers move on and things like that, bringing in a fresh star, I think it's amazing. And New Japan, give them credit. They've established themselves. When wrestlers show up there, it's important. And Wrestle Kingdom is always highlighted, and it's always great to wake up on January 4th to see all the highlights, because by the time you wake up at 7, it's almost all done, and you can kind of just go in and be like, ooh, this happened. Ooh, Will Ospreay did this. Ooh, this happened. Ooh, Nick Nemeth is there. And then this week afterwards, you realize one more star showed up. So I was very much impressed, and the matches were great, and I thought that it's just going to be great to see someone try to revamp their career.
Yeah, you're right. And again, speaking of revamping their career, Matt Riddle also heading to New Japan Pro Wrestling and has issued a challenge to the New Japan Pro Wrestling World Television Champion. The former WWE star set his sights on Hiroshi Tanahashi in a video package that was shown at New Japan Pro Wrestling's New Year's Dash on January 5th. They always run one show, and then the day later they run another show. So Wrestle Kingdom is always first, then New Year's Dash is always second. Tanahashi accepts the challenge. This video package, they're hard cuts of what looks to be like a Lamborghini or a very high-end sports model car driving to a vacant warehouse area. And then it's cut in with somebody doing mixed martial arts. And what you end up with is the car parking and getting out of the vehicle is Matt Riddle, who is dressed up in a suit or a dress shirt with slacks. He's got a more serious tone. He's no longer the bro. He does have some bedazzled, diamond-studded sandals that he is wearing, so a little bit of the bro callback, but he's much more serious, and he challenges Tanahashi. Tanahashi, like I said, accepts the challenge, saying, I'll do it, but I have no idea who this guy is, so I'll have to go back and do some research. It was very respectful, but doesn't seem like Tanahashi even knows who the hell Matt Riddle is, which was weird. It was a little bit wonky. Will this be good for Riddle? Will this be a good way for him to kind of reestablish himself and be good for his character. This more serious, less bro Matt Riddle. This guy who is going to be a little bit more MMA forward, a guy who's going to be a little bit more of a shaker and a maker instead of what he was in WWE. You remember, if you go back to NXT, him and Timothy Thatcher had one of those pit matches where he knocked Timothy Thatcher's teeth out. Riddle can be serious, and Riddle can go. I think this could be really good for his indie career, and maybe you see Riddle back with a bigger wrestling organization sooner than later. What do you think for Matt Riddle?
Yeah, the ultimate bro. I thought it was a great promo delivered, and that's all you can ask for is an opportunity. He's got to clean his life up. I think he's got the talent. He's got the experience. Now he's got to put the demons aside and stop being so silly, take himself seriously, and he could be a world champion caliber individual in New Japan and in AEW. So I think that this is step one. He's got to take his life seriously. The substances got to be put down. If you want to take yourself seriously, now's the time.
For sure. Let's get to our show of the week. What was your show of the week? We had a fantastic Dynamite. We had a really good Raw, and we had a really good SmackDown. You also have your picks of NXT. You've got Impact, you got Rampage, and you've got Collision. Where do you want to give your points?
Listen, when you get The Rock back, it's all good, man. I thought that they timed it perfectly. I think Raw is the show of the week, but Dynamite, give them a close second because they set up the women nicely. They really, really did well with the arrival of Deonna Purrazzo. I thought that their segments were not boring. I thought the main event was Swerve Strickland with Prince Nani dancing off with Daniel Garcia, got the crowd hot. I thought Dynamite really, really kicked off well. And if it's true that the executives that have been moved on from were let go to revamp kind of ideas and television time, Dynamite hit on every segment. It was really good. The wrestling was good. It didn't lull. It didn't drag. And it was perfectly timed. And I think with Hangman Page involvement as well with Swerve, bringing back the feud, Samoa Joe doing his thing, I think that Dynamite now setting forth a good path moving forward. You got the stars that you needed on there. It didn't have filler, but the Raw was the best show of the week. You have The Rock return, the pop of the year so far, and people are excited because whenever you get the world of wrestling talking regarding scenarios, who's going to be impacted, what it means to see The Rock, you can't beat it. It kicked off the year strong.
Yeah, I thought Raw was really, really good. And you're right, Dynamite was an incredibly close second. We'll give the point to Raw this week. You ready for some news and notes? This is one of our longer wrestling episodes. A whole lot to get into. I've got some news and notes, and we can close her out. You ready?
Hit me with this week's professional wrestling. New Year's news and notes. What made your list?
Where there is smoke, there may be fire. One former WWE champion may be headed to AEW, according to reports. Fightful Select has reported that industry insiders expect that Mercedes Moné will sign with AEW. No one has confirmed that it has already happened, however. As was reported with the case of the recent signings of both CM Punk and WWE and Will Ospreay with AEW, there is precedent for the official signing on the dotted line to not occur until the day of the appearance. Rumor is it could be a 5-year deal worth $25 million. So we'll see what happens with Mercedes Moné and AEW. Now, rumors are swirling about changes coming to WWE. WWE could be set to make changes to SmackDown's commentary lineup in 2024. If you watch Friday Night SmackDown, you will notice that things have kind of already made a little bit of an adjustment. There was no Michael Cole. It appears that Michael Cole's run on the blue brand may be over. Still waiting for something to actually come out and say, yes, this is the deal. But according to a new report for PW Insider Dave Scheer, the word making the rounds is that WWE are planning on having 2-man announce teams in 2024 on all of their programming. So it'll be Michael Cole and Wade Barrett on Monday Night Raw. It'll be Corey Graves and your favorite Australian guy, or no, is he Australian or is he British? I don't know. No, he's Irish. It'll be your Irish guy that you can't stand. I can't remember his name off the top of my head. They'll be doing SmackDown. A longtime WWE employee has left the company on December 30th. It was reported that by Mike Johnson of PW Insider that WWE's longstanding executive producer and chief global television distribution, Kevin Dunn, would be departing the company after over 40 years at his own request. While the report stated that the news was not so much shocking within the company due to his due to the previous reported intentions of not working for anyone other than Vince McMahon. A different report from Fightful Select noted that it did take several WWE talents by surprise. In a follow-up to the story by Johnson of PW Insider, an internal email has been released to have been sent by Nick Khan to WWE employees. In the message, Khan confirms Dunn's departure and reveals that an in-person meeting will be taking place with the company's media team ahead of their Monday Night Raw programming that took place on January 1st. The message read, Paul and I will be having an in-person meeting with the media team at Raw in San Diego today at 12 p.m. Pacific time with our superstars at 12:30 Pacific time. We look forward to seeing many of you there, and we look forward to crushing 2024 together with all of you. The meeting was reportedly short and positive, with one source telling PW Insider that it was focused on rallying the troops, describing it as a great meeting. Now, MJF is out of action, but for how long? In a shocking title change on Saturday night, MJF lost his AEW championship to Samoa Joe. Following the title change, it was reported that MJF is now expected to take some time off with the now former champion reportedly working through a series of injuries during his title reign. Per Dave Meltzer on Wrestling Observer Radio, MJF may have to undergo surgery to fix a shoulder injury, which would keep him out of action for some time. Meltzer noted his shoulder is legitimately hurt. I was told that he is either going to have to rehab the shoulder, the main problem, or he may need surgery. And just judging from how severe it is or was, he may need the surgery, and the surgery would put him out for quite a while. He is still debating on the path to take. Recently, MJF was removed from AEW's wrestler page. It's believed that these two things are related. Now, sticking with AEW and the injury bug, AEW star Rush revealed that he suffered a torn hamstring during his second match in the Continental Classic tournament against Mark Briscoe. Rush said that he will be recovering from the injury after his recent All-Star Tag Team match at World's End. The Bloodline could be getting their first female member soon. Per Fightful Select, sources within TNA Wrestling have noted that the former Naomi is expected to be a free agent very soon. It's expected that Trinity Fatu, wife of Jimmy Uso, will finish up with TNA soon, though Fightful hasn't heard whether or not that will happen at the upcoming TNA Hard to Kill pay-per-view. In January of 2023, WWE sources noted that they were confident that they could re-sign Trinity before an unofficial hiring freeze was put in place, though it's not known if that had anything to do with her ultimately ending up back with the company. Trinity and Mercedes Moné both walked out of the company in 2022. And that's going to do it for this week's Wrestling News and Notes.
Make sure you follow Adam on Twitter at AdamRSTROZ. Follow Detroit Sports Podcast at Detroit Podcast on Twitter. Hit us up. If anything that you heard today on this podcast affects you, makes you think a certain kind of way, if you totally disagree, if you think that Dynamite, if you're an AEW slappy and you think that they're still doing their thing and WWE is falling off, let us know. Hit us up. If you're somebody that is territorial, we're interested. If you're somebody that's like, hey, the IWC needs to kind of come together and stop being so territorial, let us know. We're always interested in what you guys think. Thanks to all the supporters that follow us. Make sure that you listen, subscribe, interact, and like we said, 300 episodes strong, hoping for many, many more. The world of wrestling is evolving, and this year, like I said, many storylines, many big things are coming. New stars are going to go from the mid-card to the top, from the top to superstar status, and you're getting a dream matchup potentially at some of these premier live events. And now you got AEW taking it on the chin near the end of 2023, but looking to rebound in 24. Can they rebound from the CM Punk epic mistake as they basically infused WWE with millions of cash, millions of dollars in merchandise? Will they rebound? Let's see. Thanks, everybody. I can't wait to hit it up, fire it up next week for the next episode of the DocNJock Wrestling Podcast.